So I do the roll calling?
No, I could go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Sheena Chin,
Here.
June Loy. Here. Doug Hagan. Here. Bob Moss. Here. Don McDougall. Here.
Okay, good. So oral communications? No, okay. So let's move on to agenda changes, request, deletions. Deletions, yeah. Any changes, requests? No, okay, let's move on. First, approval of draft minutes of regular meeting on November 6, 2014. Any questions regarding the minute?
On the agenda, a couple of things we may want to talk about, since we apparently have an actual meeting date for the meeting with the council, and we're not going to be meeting before then. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we want to say to the council and how we want to work with them, or do you think we don't need to?
So now we'll move to the approval of draft minutes. So
Yeah. Do you want to add that as an item to talk about?
okay.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. You want to add this to the agenda?
Agenda or
What?
because
The
we're
meeting
in
with the city council is agendized as number 3.
yes.
It's on the agenda?
Oh, okay, you're right. Review the LAC committee. Yeah, I missed that. I looked at that before and I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
That's fine. So, okay, that's the first, approval of draft minutes of regular meeting on November 6, 2014. So any questions? So do I have a motion to pass, to approve this draft?
I can move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say?
Aye.
Okay, so we pass and we approve the draft minutes. Okay, so let's move on. The second, follow-up work from October 23rd, Library Board Effectiveness Training. First, I want to say thank you to Evelyn. She did a good job. Thank you so much. Take notes and print it out, and it's so detailed. So that's kind of reference for us for the coming year.
So the discussion that you need to have tonight is to clarify if there are items, just as I mentioned in the cover memo, if there are items that you wish to pursue as a group, activities that you'd like to suggest for the commission to think about, or maybe there are things that you are already doing that you just want to call that out. Based on the notes that we took at the meeting, the themes or ideas which received 2 to 3 dots under planning was strategic planning input, which I think you are doing, and then going down to community relations, there was Facebook as a way, as an outlet, and program ideas. And under advocacy, there was other libraries learn from and compare. So those were the 4 items that had 2 or 3 votes from those participating in the CalTAC workshop. Or not CalTAC, I'm sorry, it's another acronym, used to be CalTAC. So I don't know how you want to proceed with this, if you'd like to just narrow it down to a specific number, if you'd like to do that, but that's my introduction to this, and then I leave the discussion up to you.
I think that's a very good idea that we follow up, because we spend so much time on that training, and we brainstorm together to come up with a few ideas about different things. So I think we should follow up. But the thing is, how should we follow up with that? Should we have a subcommittee to follow up, or we just, what do you think?
Maybe more than one subcommittee. Is this on now?
Yes.
Does that make it on? Do I have to sit over here by it? I think that's part of the issue, is that when are we going to have time to discuss it as a group, except now? Or how do we?
If it's a discussion like subcommittee, then maybe just the two of you.
But it would just be two,
Two,
so how
yes.
can we decide what we all want to do if we don't discuss it a little?
So a subcommittee.
What did people think? So just, I did read this, and observed one thing, which was that we have follow trends in peer libraries under planning, but then we also did have other libraries learn from and compare under advocacy. So it did strike me that that was actually kind of a 3-star item rather than a 2. It's a 2-star item under advocacy. And that does seem to me personally to be something that it's important for us to do as advocates for the community.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'm just wondering, how we go about it and what we'd be comparing.
Right, and
Because there's a lot of things to compare. But I do think it's important, in terms of generating ideas or best practices. So I don't know, how we do that, if it's something we'd actively do to go do visits, or, we're looking for package reports, or there's lists we can get on to get information.
Well,
But, I guess, I'd be very interested in discussing, so I think comparing ourselves with other libraries and learning should be a part of whatever we do. But I'm really interested in talking about what we might compare, what we want to learn from them, like in terms of what our needs are, right? Because there's a lot of directions that could go. So I'd almost say, if we can figure out what that focus area might be, or a few of them are. And I feel like with the agenda today, hopefully we'd have a sense of that in terms of what we might want to talk with council about, as well as their strategic plan. It seems like tonight we're going to, hopefully, have some focus around some what's. So I totally agree about doing that.
Okay.
Well,
So,
what do you guys think down the other end?
Don, any ideas?
So I read this again too, and particularly after spending time at the library opening and sort of having 2 or 3 months under my belt, maybe so now I'm an expert. I certainly agree with you that the move that other libraries up to the planning or learning. I think it's learning and planning. I think there's 2 reasons for looking at what other libraries do. It's not just because doing that we can tell Monique what she ought to do. My guess is that she and her staff spend a lot more time understanding what other libraries do than we do. And so I think it's a learning
Yes,
component.
I'm sure of that.
It's a learning thing, not a planning thing. In terms of Doug's question, I think it's a good one of what is it we want to track, but we do have this report in front of us, and I think that if there was a way for us to understand from, and I don't have the acronyms right for the California Library Associations, but if there was a way for us to learn from looking at the California numbers relative to our numbers, I think that would be useful in the numbers that we're talking about here.
Okay, since we all agree that we should look into it, but just what's the format? Okay, so why don't we do this? I will organize it and try to come up with some outlines for us to discuss. Hopefully next meeting. If it's not next meeting, maybe next meeting in April. How about that?
I would think that's a good idea, but I think it would behoove all of us to maybe email you directly some of our specific thoughts here. Some of my thoughts today are different than when we did this.
Sure, sure. You're
several
more than
weeks ago.
welcome to let me know your thoughts, your
Yeah.
ideas, then I can organize
If
it.
that
Well,
makes sense.
Let me put it a little different way. There are differences in the groups that different libraries serve, even within Palo Alto, let alone different cities statewide. And so, there's two things we should be looking at. We have quantitative data on things like visits, circulation, hours open, how much we're spending. We can, as an example, we could take our budget and say, this is how much we're spending per visit, and how much does the Mountain View Library spend per visit, and how much does the Cambridge Library spend per visit, and so on. And that'll give us some kind of a quantitative thing. But the other thing we should be looking at is what do people specifically want that might be different in Palo Alto than it is in other libraries, in not just the Bay Area, but statewide. So if we find that we're not providing something because essentially the people here don't want it versus some other library branches where it's a big item. And one thing I can think of, for example, is learning to speak English. You know, if you're not an English learner, English speaker, and even the foreigners in Palo Alto are almost all able to speak English. They don't have to. They may not speak English at home, but they can speak English enough to get around. So, teaching adults to speak and to read English would be a low level for us, but it might be very high level for a lot of other groups. So we have to kind of balance it out. What is it we're going to try to compare with, and how do we decide what those things are we're going to be comparing? Yeah. And that's not an easy answer.
True.
I think that's why the learn from, compare, and look at other libraries. It's a learning process and an understanding process with more granularity than I think is implied in what we did here.
So, so one comment I have about the different topics, and it didn't rise up to a 2-star kind of idea, but I did want to circle back to it, and it's around the community relations, and it was kind of this concept of the teen advisory members, and I'm not sure who came up with that idea, and I'm not sure that's, doing that is an answer. And I'm not even sure what the question is, but I guess, as I went to the Mitchell Park opening and, been reading the paper, and I think it came up at our last meeting, I think that, a question I'd have, and something maybe we could learn from other libraries about, is how they're engaged with that audience, and what their needs might be. And I think Palo Alto libraries have done a lot more with their new facilities than we've ever been able to do before. And I think it's great, but I just wonder what more we could be doing. And so I guess that's a question I have coming out of this, and maybe other libraries will help us answer it, or there's other things we can be doing. But that's a what I have. How to address it, I'm still kind of trying to think about, and I'm not sure if it's of interest to anyone else, or maybe there's not even a need. Maybe they're already taken care of. But, I'd love to hear from them somehow. I'd love to get other ideas. I just don't know. But that's, I think, an audience that, really could stand to benefit and is a potential growth area for them and for us. So something I'm interested in, as far as kind of tonight's agenda and this list.
Doug, I would go so far as to say, having spent the day at the opening and thought more about this, that actually this section, community relations, and take a few other pieces that sort of relate to that and fit it in there. I would almost advocate that ought to be the focus of maybe for the next year of this group. If you read all the letters that are attached, Monique always is nice enough to provide us with the letters that she gets. I think it would be a mistake for us to assume that now the library's open, everybody is absolutely delirious. And maybe it's only people who would have been negative anyway. But I think that there's useful information in looking through those letters and understanding what the community wants in granularity, in granularity of preteens and teens and whatnot, and finding a way for us to focus on that. I think that would be a useful contribution, and it would be consistent with what Bob's saying. It's finding out what our community is interested in that's different than general. And we may need to find out what other libraries do as a benchmark, but that would be a way for us to have a focus. We got all sorts of things in here of finance and organization and planning and whatnot, but that might be the one thing, at least for a year.
Yes. Based on this, I think there are so many topics that we can talk about. So that's why I think that probably we need some kind of outlines. At least there's a way for us to narrow it down, what kind of topics or what kind of things we like to focus. And that's why I suggest that why don't you just email me what kind of topic or what areas you're very interested in, then I can organize all these things and then I can outline them. And for the next meeting, maybe we can put in the agenda, then we can follow up. If we need assistance from the library staff, I think they will be more than happy to assist us.
Can I make a suggestion as well? In the past, the LAC has formed subcommittees just to address the area of interest that they were interested in. So if someone has a particular interest in whether it's the teen services to teens or something like that, for a 6-month period, you can have a subcommittee that works together, does a little research, prepares a report. Maybe you ask the teen services librarians to come and talk about what we're already doing. And, you know, then another outcome of that can then be you become the area experts, but it can then also inform if you think you need to work on it. Some of the subcommittees in the past have said, now I understand that the library has a firm grasp on this, and we actually shouldn't be messing with this. In our role as advising the council, we now have information we've shared with you. We can inform the council on whatever aspect it is. So you may want to have a little bit further discussion just looking at, okay, what are the areas and are there people who want to work on those things? Or we can certainly assign that in February, and then you have a period of about 6 months. And some former commissioners have met with staff just to get a feel for what's going on. As topics or emails come through my desktop, I have forwarded them on to provide further information. So that is another way of looking at this, rather than thinking, oh, we all 5 need to discuss all of these items. It does provide a focus for your attention if that's something that you want to have followed up. The other thing that you can do is, say there's a topic on this list that stands out, no one's really interested in a subcommittee, but you would like us to prepare a report on what we've done in the past or what we're doing currently regarding that issue. And so you can certainly ask that, and I can work with the manager to of that area to prepare a presentation.
Yeah, I think we can afford a little more discussion now. We have till 7:45 on the agenda, I believe, to continue this discussion. And to some extent, we already have a planning, strategic planning subcommittee that June and I were doing. And I would love to volunteer to be a subcommittee with Doug on the teen issue if you're interested.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
And I would envelop the relationship between the library and the Make X as
A
part
great
of that.
example.
and I would love to work with you on that and would like to, sort of start sooner rather than later.
Great, yeah, I'd be happy to do that, if that makes sense.
Sure,
Yeah? Okay, great. Yeah, so we can get together, and I guess as far as that issue goes, we can talk about maybe some of the next steps or information we'd want to gather, and talk to Monique about some of those resources that she suggested, and how best to get that information in front of the committee, the full committee, so that everybody's informed.
Yeah, I think particularly with both the teen center and the community center and the teen part of the library, we need to pay attention to that to make sure that it's really moving well.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we decide to have subcommittee, do we have to have a motion for that, or?
You can, yeah, and if you want to have make it more formal, that we know that you guys are really assigned to do that, sure.
Okay.
Are there any other committees or focus areas that people are interested in?
Well, I agree that the community relations is the key area right now, but there are some things you can kind of pick from some of these others that fit in. And for example, advocacy, there are some items in there that could go into community relations. If you're going to have a community relation, you want to speak out on issues, as an example.
I agree. It's
So,
the other side of the coin.
yeah, so
The listening and the
I would suggest that the subcommittee, I'm not going to try to pick out all of the little details here and there.
Right.
But for the subcommittee, look at the other basic topics like advocacy and financing and funding, human resources, see if there's an item in there that you want to include in the community relations.
Yeah, no, so the subcommittee we're talking about, I think right now is specifically relative to the teen part of the community relations.
Right.
But I think that
All these
I
other
think
things can fit in.
your advice there is extremely good. Go back to every other item and see if you can see how it relates, and so you pull
Right.
it in. I think that makes sense, and so you're building a matrix of what you're
Right.
doing. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so should we have a formal subcommittee, or that would be fine? Just two of you work together to look into the community relations, especially for teens' involvement in the library.
Great, excellent.
And I would suggest you first go back to a couple of years ago with the LAC, who looked at that very issue. So there are minutes and probably recordings
Okay.
of meetings.
Thanks, Monique.
Yeah. That was two LACs ago, do you know, or?
It's been in the 3 years, three years that I've been here, so
Okay.
yes.
Okay, all right.
I was gifted hard copies of, I think, the last 3 years of minutes, and I'll search them.
Okay,
We have them electronic.
Yes, we do keep the permanent copies of all of the minutes, so Evelyn can help.
So do you have any interest in another area, or we just have this subcommittee who can focus teens' involvement as well as other areas that should be looked into?
They're related, yep.
Okay. Okay. Then Don and Doug, thank you so much.
great.
Okay. So any more discussions, questions?
If I could ask Monique, one of the other things, Monique, that was on the list under human resources was, it was things like staff recognition and so on. It was reinforced to me, spending the day as a volunteer over there, the quality of and the enthusiasm of the staff. I think my comment was that there, so many of the 5,400 people who visited that place were smiling, but the bigger smiles were actually and they were always met with smiles from your staff, and I thought that was great. Is there any reason for, or have in the past, the LAC done anything about supporting, monthly or quarterly or whatever, staff recognition or something?
No, I don't believe the LAC here have done anything specific. I'm looking at Evelyn. You know, certainly you could, we have monthly all-staff meetings. You could certainly come to an all-staff meeting, and it would be a good opportunity, too, for the staff to meet you all. You know, they may not know who you are, so that might be a good opportunity as well. But not to my knowledge, no. The Friends provide funding annually for staff appreciation, which carries out throughout the year, but primarily we recognize people in early December. We do a staff breakfast for all of the staff, and that is courtesy of the Friends.
Would it be intrusive for us to, you know, we wouldn't select who to recognize, but would it be appreciated if the LAC monthly or whatever, from some source, yourself or Evelyn could tell us, or or whatever, who might have done something that we should recognize, and have something where it says the LAC recognizes, and is that useful or intrusive?
How did it manage to die? It was working.
We rarely identify individuals by name. I would prefer that you do something for the whole staff or not at all.
Fair, thank you.
Yes, I agree with Monique, because this time, I have to say the grand open is a huge success, but it depends on all the staff, everybody in the library, and also the volunteers. So I think if we want to thank, then we have to thank all the staff. Yes. Okay, any more questions or ideas? Okay, if none, then we just move on to, yes.
I am thinking that, actually, I am personally probably interested in maybe specializing a little in understanding how our library and its services compare to other libraries, you know, in the area or in the same genre or whatever. Just because I think that's something that, I mean, that's a kind of knowledge I should have as a member of this committee. And I know that, I'm sure Monique provides many reports that show how we compare frequently. And I know the California Library Association has its site. I went and looked at it. But I would be willing to be on a subcommittee with somebody else.
Okay,
if
I'm
anybody
interested.
else wants to look into that, to maybe kind of boil things down or be able to say, yes, I understand that. I mean, that's more what I'm thinking, not so much that, I mean, we did this as a strategic exercise in what can the LAC do. Mm-hmm. So in that case, I'm not saying the LAC, I'm not currently thinking that we need to do anything differently. I just want to make sure we understand it so that we then see if something comes up, how to respond to it. For example, somebody in the community could come and say, you know, well, the Link Plus system is horrible and it's too slow, right? Well, I don't know. So I need to know more about it. And so I've been using it. It's one way to, that's one data point. So anyway, I would be willing to do that. And I think it's probably true that you're still going to go over the material and look.
I think Jen's idea is very good, because when you make comparisons, then you broaden your vision, your whole window. You know more about the library operations and their services in this area. Then we can make comparison. What is our strength and what we need to improve? I think that's a very good idea. So I can team up with you
Okay.
on that part.
Okay.
Okay,
And
good.
I think what we want to do first and foremost is understand all the material we have to read first before we get to say anything. So we'll talk to you, Monique, about what we have to look at.
And again, I will recommend a past report from the LAC comparing us to other benchmark
Yeah.
libraries.
Okay.
Eileen did a really very thorough job in comparing us. So, yeah, I'll help you look at that because, first of all, we don't compare to most anyone simply by virtue of the number of branches that we have. So already you're going out of that. And I would encourage you, while we are looking at continual improvement and thinking about how to do our job better every day, it might be helpful to approach the investigations for everyone from the standpoint that we're already doing a great deal and our staff is doing their jobs exceptionally well. And so maybe more of an appreciative inquiry focus.
Right, that would be the purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
that's why
great.
I think we need to be armed with the information so we know that it's good.
And I'll be
Yeah,
sure
that's
that
right.
that the staff who you are contacting know that you're not, your intention is not to find a problem. We're unfortunately very used to that. As opposed to, let's appreciate what you're really doing well.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. I think my comparison let us know that we're very proud to have a library in Palo Alto. Because when I made the comparison, like the meeting room, study room, and I'm really proud that Palo Alto City Library could have this kind of service for our patrons. I'm so proud. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. So let's move on to review of LAC presentation for 2015 joint meeting with City Council. I have to say I want to thank you, every one of you, to provide me all the details so I can organize and finish the slides on November 18th, and I sent the slides to Monique already. Back then, I thought the presentation was December 8th, but unfortunately, it was postponed. But I'm glad to know that the date has been set up, and it will be February 2nd. So, so everything is ready to go. So, is there any more suggestions or questions regarding? I'm not sure if Monique has already sent you the slides. No. Okay.
So I get to have a preview because I won't be there in 2015. So that's great, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Monique, for formatting these slides. I think the slides is just like lots of bullets, because I think the best way to describe things is to make things brief and precise. So all the detail, actually, the slides, when I use the PowerPoint, there's a function. Below the slides, there's a little bit comment area, and I wrote my ideas about each slide in that comment area.
Yeah,
But this
those
here,
are,
you're not
those are
able.
still there. They
Still.
are, but they're not on the printed copy. We didn't
Okay.
print it with the notes.
Okay, good.
We intended actually to have it on the board, but we can't make the board work because we don't have weekly practice like so many people do. So you have this, but all of those notes I copied onto this version, and we will email you a copy of this. So, you used a more modern version of PowerPoint than the city owns, so.
I can email because I can convert to the regular.
No, it is the way it is. Please don't do
Not
anything
much we
else.
can do. Not much we can do to help.
good.
If you do, you may decide that some of these bits of information aren't exactly what you want to say now that Mitchell Park is open, maybe, I don't know, but if you want to stick with this, the images for the Orange Boy slides, those will be dropped in, but what I will do is drop in the most recent data
Yes.
from
Thank you.
so that it'll be on that night, it'll be the most current data.
Okay, good.
Um, But anyhow, yes, the actual presentation itself does have the notes there for you, and certainly you guys can add to them if needed.
So once Monique emailed you the PowerPoint, you will see the notes below the slides, and you would know that for each slide, I had some notes about that, what kind of content and materials that I'll mention when I introduce the slide. So that's about it. And thank you, Monique, for updating the information about Orange Boy, because my original idea is that Monique can show the council members how the dashboard works, but it really takes time. So we can only briefly give them the idea. We do have the tool, the powerful tool for us to understand our patrons. So, but updating the data, I think it's a good idea.
Just a comment, I just took a fast look at these, and there's an error on page 3.
Page 3.
How the library served you. Books checked out in 2013 was not 199,000.
Yeah, it just looks like a typo.
Oh, yeah,
there's
that, I just copied that directly from the information you provided, so I'll make sure that that page
Yeah,
is correct.
I'm gonna check that out, but I think that's 990,000 or 1,009,000 or something like that.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Sheena, I just had a question. I couldn't read on slide 3. Strategic plan, I think it was red color.
Page 3, you mean
Page 1, slide 3.
page 1?
I just couldn't see what the first issue was.
Oh, yeah,
I
there's
don't
something missing
know
at the
how it
top.
shows when it's on screen. I'm
Yeah, so
not
what's
sure.
the word, though?
It's innovation.
Innovation, thanks.
Okay.
And what is the logistics? Sheena, I assume that you would plan on presenting these to the council and we would just participate as appropriate?
Yeah, sure. For the last, when we're talking about the dashboard, Orange Boy's dashboard, okay, I do have a few slides, but the few slides, it all depends on the time. If we don't have enough time, probably we just introduce a few of the slides. But the main idea, we have to let the council members know about the dashboard. But the slides you see from page 4 to 5, it all depends on the time. If we have enough time, then we can go through all the slides. If we don't, then probably I just introduce 1 or 2 of the slides. Just to let
Yeah,
you know.
I think that in the PowerPoint guidelines that the city have, you don't necessarily need to read all of those or even explain them. You can just say, here's an example of what the dashboard helps us track, and they may have a question themselves, because it's likely that now that this is all mostly done, they may receive a copy of this as part of the packet ahead of time. So, they may have already formulated some questions even before they get to the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, on page 5, where you have some kind of generic headings, like circulation, I think it'd be a good idea to have the actual circulation by branch. And
Actually, we'll use the picture from the Orange Boy dashboard that does circulation by cluster. It won't be by branch, it'll be
I
by,
know the data's out there, but if this is going to be the handout, then I think we should have the data in the handout, is what I'm saying.
You want the data for each branch?
Yeah, what I think would be useful, and we've got the data, it was been presented to us before, is the actual circulation. I don't know if we'll have it for the fourth quarter of this year in February or not, but the latest data we have, because one of the things that kind of jumps out at you is the huge amount of circulation in Mitchell Park. I don't think most people realize how very used that branch is. And I think that would be helpful, and also the number of visits to each branch, so that people looking at it will get an idea of what the distribution is branch to branch, and what the attendance is branch to branch, because it does make a difference. And one of the reasons I'm sensitive to this is because in past years, there's been a tendency to put more emphasis on branches like downtown and College Terrace than Mitchell Park, which is part of the generic problem we've had with South and West Palo Alto getting kind of pushed off to the side in terms of providing adequate services. So I think it'd be very useful to show what the circulation is in each branch.
Does dashboard have that function to show each branch?
No, Orange Boy doesn't do that. Orange Boy goes by cluster.
Clusters.
So we can provide that information as a separate handout. I do want to say that there are a number of Orange Boy customers who are really no longer focusing on circulation by branch, circulation by type. I understand what Bob is saying, and we'll be happy to do that, but they're really looking at by cluster, how are we serving the identified groups that we're targeting, because we have done that. But it's certainly not an issue. We'll provide a spreadsheet that has the basic information regarding circulation by branch, and we can do a year-to-year comparison. That always shows up in the auditor's SEA report annually in any case.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I guess I just want to clarify, might have just become confused. So on page 5, we've got the circulation by cluster, new cardholder activity, and market penetration, and kind of one bullet for each. And then we don't have the notes that Sheila would have. Were you just implying that there will be data, specific data about circulation by cluster on these slides at the city council meeting, and that will be this? Okay, got it. So there will be.
But it will be the information that is the most recent to that meeting. Yes.
Perfect, okay, great. That's great. I'm
So
happy.
it would be like a handout. It will not show on the slides.
No, it will show on the slide.
It will show.
I will cut and paste this, and I will put it into the PowerPoint where you
Okay.
see a picture of the fall trees.
And it will be
It will
up
be
to date because
circulation by
that's-
cluster, and it will be that day's most recent data.
Okay.
Great.
Just as this is the most recent data to this meeting.
Yes.
So, but each will show the corresponding graph. And then Sheena had one bullet point on each of those slides. And so it describes, it's from the notes that you put in there that describes what we are trying to follow with that slide. So even if she doesn't have time to maybe talk about it, they will at least get a visual of what we're looking at. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I think the thing that's really important, to go back to what Bob said, is what you're doing is really understanding your customer. That's really what that Orange Boy stuff is all about. The problem is the customer doesn't think that way. In terms of the customer understanding us, their metric is how many visits, books, or whatever in the individual library. So I think the reason that both are useful is one is us understanding them, and the other is them understanding us. if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand.
I can give you an example of issues that library users have that we ought to be at least acknowledging, because my wife has this happen frequently. She wants to read some books from an author who's put out a group of books, like 5, 6, 7 books, on a particular topic, as an example, or on a particular issue. And the Palo Alto Library will have the 1st and the 6th and the 7th. And that's it. And so we also have a library card for Mountain View. Mountain View has all of them. So we end up going down to Mountain View and getting the books there. And once upon a time, before they started charging, we also used to go down to the Los Altos Library. And now that they're going to stop that $80 charge next year, we may start using them again. But we found, I can't tell you how many, but my wife has this problem about once every 6 or 8 weeks where she wants to get all the books in a series, and Palo Alto Library doesn't even have them all. And I keep telling her, well, you should, poke them and tell them that they're missing it. She says, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to go down to Mountain View and get them. It's something you should be aware of.
Yeah, we do track it as much as we can, but again, it's really helpful if people point that out to us.
I will harass her next time she says that to give me the names of the books that are missing, and I'll let you know what she's looking for and can't find.
Thanks, Bob, for your feedback. Any more questions regarding the presentation slides? Okay, so let's move on to the update from LAC Subcommittee on Library Strategic Plan. Don and June.
Monique was kind enough to meet with us, and I think we had a very positive and robust discussion. The strategic plan is divided into, I think, 5, 6 different sections, and we had comments on each one, or discussions on each one, really. And in the first section, it's about learning, and our discussion was about having a strategic plan and goals that are more granular, not just in general, but in preteens and teens and seniors and so on. Under the second goal is about digital collection. We had a discussion about the fact that it's maybe not just digital collection, but it's a balance of hard copy and other collections, and so it's not just the digital part, it's the balance of the collections. Under the community part, we had a discussion about whether diversity should be included in the library goals. Monique pointed out that diversity is part of the city goals, and since the library falls under the city goals, that's maybe covered there. Under partnership, the fourth goal, we talked about the potential of more explicit partnerships with nonprofits that could be local organizations that are similarly interested in learning in the community and more maybe cross-pollination. Under the cultural goals, we talked about, and I thought June made a really good point relative to staff training, and particularly relative to leadership training, not management training, but leadership training because of the leadership position that Monique wants the library to be taking and is taking. We talked about the use of facilities, particularly the study rooms, and whether that was something that should be called out as goals, particularly because of the new libraries. We talked about efficiency in general, whether it should be called out in the goals and the strategic plan, and we talked about whether the the strategic plan should include a review of the policy and procedures. And I think we agreed that including the dashboard was more of an operational issue than it was a strategic plan issue, but we talked about that. But the updating of the policies and procedures, if you see some of the letters that are attached to tonight's notes, we might want to be paying some attention to. So those were the discussions we had. I think Monique was receptive and positive, and we appreciate her allowing us to have input. June, I think, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers the set of subjects that we talked about. And the one about the collection was just that it seems as though there is an intent to have a hard copy collection, and it wasn't explicitly called out, so weren't sure whether there needed to be something said there or not. So I guess question we had is, will we see the strategic plan yet before it gets published on the web or adopted, or?
It doesn't need to be formally adopted by anyone. It is our document that guides our work for the next year. So you've had input. You'll see it when it's published.
So it's an internal plan is really what you're saying. So it's not going to be like the big...
No, it will be published. It will be
Okay.
on the web, but annually, as the council revises, or I shouldn't point to you anymore, as the council, another week and a half, as the council annually sets up its goals, and that happens usually at the end of January, we have to change our work plan to often incorporate what they're working on. So a lot of the action steps that are aligned with the advice you gave us or gave to me, those are updated annually. So this is really a living document. You're welcome to provide input or feedback at any time. So we will have a draft. You can review a draft, but you won't meet again until February. So we will likely have all of the action steps and work plan information included. But again, it's not in the part that you reviewed is pretty much the part that will not change, because it's the goals and objectives. The actions that back those up are what will change and be updated regularly.
And I think I saw something, Monique, that you're currently working with a consultant to help you fill in the action plans relative to those particular goals.
Yeah, the staff managers have made their recommendations regarding some of the things that are either underway to address those items, or that we plan as part of the budget, because you've got two separate things. You have a calendar year work plan, but you have a fiscal year budget. And so we have to manage both of those aspects. So we have some money for things that we didn't plan or intend to do yet. We have things we'd like to do that we have no money for, and somehow we have to make that all work. So, so in February, you'll see the final product. Hopefully, there will be no gross errors that you really don't go along with, but we have to start working, because by then you've already missed, what, 2/12 of the year, 1/6 of the year. It's no one said this job was the spinning plates was the easy part. So if as a subcommittee though you feel like you would really like to review it again, I'll be more than happy to pass it along to you or meet with you again prior to us tying up those loose ends. Again, it would be a useful tool for you advocating with the council going forward, but you'll have it well before that, the real budgetary stuff begins.
So thank you, Monique. I have two comments. One, I was glad to hear you say it was a living document. it's not a 3-year strategic plan that gets put in a drawer or whatever. I like the fact that you're continually spinning the plates, and appreciate that. And my second comment would be, I think as a subcommittee, we would love to see it again. I think not at this point because we expect you to change it again or whatever, but because, going back to my earlier statement, learning what you're doing and having just a real understanding would be really valuable. So we would appreciate that as a subcommittee if we get early look at that.
When it comes
Yeah,
to the budget issues and the funding that's being proposed, which usually comes in, I believe, February, Finance Committee started looking at it seriously. One of the things we probably ought to be doing is quantifying what the impact is of having 2 new library facilities open and the change in circulation, in visits, in demand on libraries for library services. So that when the budget is being discussed, you can talk about, well, gee, we've got these new facilities open, we spent all this money on them, and people are storming them, and we need more money for maybe longer hours, because I've heard people complain that the libraries aren't open enough, or more materials, or people want e-books, but they're more expensive than regular paper books, but we still want to be able to supply a few more of them, so we want to be able to fund more. Whatever you think we need more of, or that the people are demanding more of that they did a year or 2 ago because of the change in the facilities and the opportunity that people now have to get into new buildings and into new options, let's put it that way. So I think we should be, kind of getting prepared to do that so that we don't just assume everything's going to be going the same way a year or 2 from now as it has been going the last 5 years.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions related to this, because I don't recall. Do you often or frequently or infrequently put in for budget modifications mid-fiscal year if things arise that you feel you need to have more fiscal capacity?
We don't, most of the mid-year budget requests are just to clean up, receive grants maybe that and allocate grants, funding, things like that. I have been in conversations with Walter Rossman about what, our increased needs might be. We obviously keep track of statistics, so we have the data to support upcoming requests and things like that. So, although and I'm happy to answer these questions, but they're not really about the strategic plan necessarily. So, but no, I'm happy to. But for the most part, no, we don't do mid-year requests.
And another quick question on the issue of, because I didn't know where, I could wait to the end, but a quick question about the issue of library hours. And I know you have had very thorough responses to the public on that. I mean, very thorough, and you get those questions, I'm sure, periodically. I'm not aware, I haven't looked for this. Is there a frequently asked questions section of the website, or perhaps you already do this, where that particular issue is addressed? Now, invariably, people are asking it and have not looked on the website and don't realize, but is there any area that's right out there that people can see a very clear response to that inquiry?
We do have FAQs on the My Mitchell page. There is information there. You're correct. A number of people have said, well, I paid for more hours, and it's like, no, you paid for the buildings, you didn't pay for the operations. Right. And to quickly, I mean, I have provided a number of responses, but one of the examples that I've been giving recently is, again, we have 5 libraries. When they're all open, 3 of them are open 7 days a week. Our budget is about 7.5 million to operate 5 branches. The city of Sunnyvale has 1 library branch. It's open 66 hours a week, 7 days a week, and they have 8.3 million to operate 1 library branch. So we operate 5 on far less than what they do. The fact that we are open 7 days a week in 3 different facilities, the fact that we are open until 8 p.m. is nearly miraculous. And I understand that people want more. If you ask them, people will tell you, we want 24-hour-a-day service, which they have through the website. It's there. And that's been true in every library where I have ever worked. So I think that it's really important to recognize that for the amount of money we are allocated in the budget, we accomplish an unbelievable amount in comparison, right? That's true. Yeah. So we understand. We're in the director's report. I'll make some comments, some more comments, but.
Well, and I think this is, Gail's basically was suggesting it's possible that something could be said on the web, but I know that would be difficult to craft and might even not be perceived as wise, to indicate what a good job is being done with the money that people have spent to have these buildings and to have people over and have all these branches, to try to address that segment that is always thinking maybe they didn't get a good, is worried they didn't get a good deal or feels deprived, or, to try to help them see positively what is being provided. That's kind of what you're getting at?
Well, we do.
But I think
like
there is something.
Yeah. There are FAQs that are more related to the building, the operations, the basic operations, the sort of comparison analysis, things like that. We have not put that up, and certainly that's one of those things that you need to continue to update regularly. So, but we do, as part of the SEA, again, the auditor's report compares us to a variety of libraries in terms of how we do. That's online, that's published every year, and there are comparison libraries that they use. Again, a regional library that has 5 branches is Berkeley Public Library. They have 5 libraries. They also have a $15 million budget. So again, you're looking at things that are not necessarily comparing apples to apples. So, that's part of the education process that we can certainly work on more.
Okay, thank you. I think the strategic plan sounds that it's not very related to the budget, but when you make the goals, then you have to look at how much money you have, because if you want to do something, money is so important.
Yes.
Without money, you can do nothing. So when you make goals, then you have to know how much money in your pocket. I think that's the idea.
Agreed, yes.
Okay, so I want to thank Don and June for your time and efforts on this. Thank you very much. So any more? Yes.
And I just wanted to say one more thing, which is whenever you do think you've got that strategic plan, so it's set, you're operating against it, or if you change it, I think we would be happy to just get a little email with the copy, and then we'll know. So that's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank Monique's assistance. Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Just one real quick. So being a little bit new to the strategic planning process for the library, is there a place where we have last year's? I'm just curious how, the process has rolled out and, take a look at, or is this a new process for us?
This is actually a new document. Do you remember the LISMAR
Yes.
and the technology plan?
Yeah.
Those were 2 documents that were created years ago to prepare for the construction projects and the multiple technology projects. But those have basically
Run their course.
Were overdue with the end of them. And so this document will serve to put those to bed. And so using the data that we did, the surveys with Orange Boy, the stakeholder interviews, the exit surveys, the demographic data and library use data collection, that informed the process. So we had a variety of different stakeholders who were involved. And then we worked with, you met Jane Light, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So Jane Light was the consultant. She's the former director of the San Jose Public Library, and she worked with a key group, a sort of, if you want to call it, a blue ribbon committee of the library staff from all levels of service in the library to develop, you know, a revised mission statement, a vision for the library, as well as the goals and objectives. And then we did a presentation with you, and you developed a subcommittee to work with me and provide me some additional information. And I think some of the suggestions about structure are very helpful. And then we continued to come up with action plan items. So now we have most of the action plan figured out. We're just waiting now for the council piece to make sure that what we're proposing is in alignment with at least some of their goals. Things having to do with traffic and parking and infrastructure, we don't have much of a formal role, but certainly we can be a place of information, and many people don't realize that the library does have the public documents available for many of the meetings that people go to, so you can certainly come and review those at the library. So we have a less formal role in those things that don't need to be called out. So we're at the point now of nearly being ready for that, and then the LISMAR and the technology plan will just become history.
Right. Great. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So can you, I'm just trying to align that. I mean, given the importance of money, obviously, and if something were to come out of the strategic planning process that required new money, how does that align with the fiscal year and the calendar year if we weren't to do a mid-year budget request? Where's the next, is it 2016, or at what point is the budget done relative to our plan being done?
So our plan will be done in January, and that's when we begin the formal budget
Budgeting
preparation
process.
process.
Okay. All right.
I normally ask for more than I get every year, which is fine. I mean, that's the way you go about it. I've been doing this for 20-something years now, so I was thinking about how many budgets had I prepared. A lot. And preparing the statistics, preparing the information, the background information to support our position is important, and I certainly feel like I'm in a city where the library is valued. However, I think we're at the point now where if additional hours are what we need to figure out a way to allocate additional staff, because the only other option would be to stop doing programs, to stop doing outreach. We could do that and perhaps add public service hours, or make changes to where the service hours are allocated and reduce the number of libraries and change how those are allocated. So we're at a point now where, and these were cuts that were done in 2009, 2010, when the city had to make hard decisions about all citywide services and reduce staff and things like that. So and other than 3 positions which are coming in January to offset the increased size of Mitchell Park, we're pretty much at where we were in terms of staffing in 2009, 2010, which is pretty much what everybody's been doing. So, and I'm if you all have questions about that going forward, I'm happy to go over that with you. And we do bring, suggestions or thoughts here, and if you have ideas, you can certainly contact me.
Okay, thank you. No more question? Okay, let's move on to opening libraries updates.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
I just wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss the grand opening event at the Mitchell Park Library and Community Center, as well as to talk about Rinconada. I don't know if anybody has comments. You all had seen, and I know the city manager reported, that our attendance was over 5,500, I think, on December 6th. That was from 11:45 to 5 p.m., and we were turning people away. There were still people wanting to come in. We issued, about 240 library cards and checked out about 4,400 items. So in the first month, when there were many people who did not even realize that we were open in the soft opening phase, we circulated close to 55,000 items, had about, 35,000 people come into the building, and issued close to 1,000 library cards, if I'm recalling my numbers correctly, which is great. I mean, if you think about that, that library has about 120,000 items. We've checked out nearly half of the items in that first month when, again, people didn't even know we were open. So that was great. And the use has continued to be very strong and steady. This week, as you know, in the 5 weeks following December 6th, we have themed weeks of activities. This week was Teen Week, which happened to coincide with Finals Week. So Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and tonight, the library was open until 10 p.m. if you had a student ID. And they've had about 100 teens every night until 10 p.m. Wow. The first night they had therapy dogs there to help kids calm down. There's a yoga class. Yeah. We only had enough staff to keep the first floor open, and Ruth Ann Garcia, the branch manager, said when I got there at 7 o'clock, there were kids upstairs, downstairs, all over the library. So they had to herd them down, and there were snacks, and there were family members who would come, and the Palo principal came around 9:30 to thank the library for what they had done. And kids were leaving right around 10 and saying thank you for, having some space for us to do this. So tonight is the final night of that. I think there's a yoga thing tonight as well. And the teen center was open as well during this, so that the kids could go back and forth to the teen center and relax and do something fun, and then come back and study. And I think there is a gaming night tomorrow night at the teen center to celebrate the end of finals.
I want to find out where you get those therapy dogs.
The therapy dogs are part of the Pause to Read program, and so they're volunteers who come help us. It is a great program. So we continue with, I think, a week for seniors next week, which is during the holidays and kind of helpful to keep people active if their families are far away and they're not perhaps going to be around. And we have some good programs coming up for the multicultural week. We've got a great Chinese performance group, and then there's Technology Week, and we have some special Google search programs, and we've got some of our technology vendors coming in to do demonstrations to help people use Mango languages, things like that. So all of this, again, is on the My Mitchell page in the city website. There are links to different programs. Hopefully all the flyers are up there as I say this out loud. But certainly, yeah, we've got a lot going on. So I don't know if anybody had any comments or feedbacks about the day itself or the library, if you have any questions.
I think the grand opening is It's great because a few reporters were there from Mandarin newspaper and the Mandarin radio station, and I think TV, KTSF as well. And when they see, and because I gave them tours, and when they see all of this, they cannot believe it. And all they can say is, WOW, wow. And some of them even want to apply our library card immediately because, as you know, that we not only you cannot only check out prints, you can also use our electronic resources, which is so good. So that's how they feel, and that's how we feel, I believe, right, on that grand opening day.
I've said congratulations several times to Monique and Christine and the whole staff. And I made the comment about all the smiles, and I thought that was a really interesting part of it. And the only other tidbit of knowledge that I got out of it or observation was so many people brought books back, obviously, that I think they had taken out of the temporary one and brought them back, that one of the two automatic machines actually overheated from overuse. And I looked at that as saying, wow, that's the good news, not the bad news.
Yes.
Fortunately, the vendor had a man on site. I think it's Swedish. So there was this very tall Swede back there helping us. He had to come back though on Monday. It was not an easy fix. And I did want to recognize the volunteers and thanks to all of you for coming. Sheena for getting such great contacts with the media. That was great. Dawn stood there all day handing out. Kept trying to give me flyers.
She kept refusing.
But I will send you an email. I believe that on January 12th, at that council meeting, we will be on special orders of the day, or is it later? It might be later. It will be on special orders. It might be the 22nd or something. But anyhow, we will send you the date. We are going to recognize all the volunteers who helped at the grand opening and who've been helping us to get ready. So you'll receive an invitation to that.
So there was one metric I was monitoring that I know it was I know the opening was a success. So on the homepage for the city website, they have the most popular links in the upper left, and the libraries were at number one, which was just phenomenal. And it happened to be number one during the week of the rains, and it actually, second place was the Creek Monitor. So we beat out the Creek Monitor during a potential flood. So I think that really speaks volumes about how interested everybody is.
We're always number one. And part of that is because our public access computers are set to the library's homepage. So we do fake it out a little bit, but they could figure out a different way to count. That's all.
Don't tell them.
But yes, I think it's great that we're number one.
Well, so I just want to say, definitely the grand opening was really great, and having the library open is a wonderful thing. I happen to live in the neighborhood, so the traffic coming in and out of the library is amazing. It's really changed the dynamic. So I can tell by that. Traffic is often an interesting indicator that it's going well.
Okay.
I thought that the entire event was very successful, and all of the people who were commenting were very positive about the library and their experience. And I didn't hear anybody saying, oh, gee, we spent all this money for this. No, that's not what they were saying. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, this is all been great, wonderful. And the staff people were very helpful and very positive. They were all, most of the time you had big smiles on their face and helping people around. I thought they did very well, particularly considering the number of people who were coming through and all the people who were asking questions, where's this, where's that, how can I get this? And the staff handled it very well. I thought the entire event was quite impressive.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to mention is the MakeX. They do have area for them, right? I think it's at the community room. And they drew lots of a crowd, and a lot of people went there to see what they are doing. And I was there, and I was amazed that they can do this kind of 3D printing and cut the little wood panel, something like that. So, but I know that actually their location is in Kirby Center, Community
Yes.
Center now.
Yes.
Is there any chance that they could move to Mitchell Park? Because I think if they have a place there, then they could introduce this new technology and they could have more teens get involved.
So MakeX is really run primarily by teen volunteers, so there are a lot of teens there. And MakeX obviously came after all of the buildings were designed. So they would need to exclusively use a classroom for a long time. And one of the pieces that they had at that event, which was the laser cutter, that requires it to be vented to the outside. So we sort of, fake it out by sending the vent all the way, the stuff that moves around. What am I saying? It's the round vent duct, yeah, that gets moved around. So when we initially got the grant, it was a collaboration between the Art Center and the library. Management of it has now exclusively by the library. The Art Center is a participant, but they're no longer in charge of it. And we will be hiring, the library will actually be hiring a rec leader 3, so there will be an adult to monitor the need for supplies. Right now, their hours are really based on when the volunteers can be there, so it's Fridays and Saturdays or Saturdays and Sundays.
Friday and Sundays.
And the ability to have in younger kids to introduce them to different activities, do specialized programs with families, things like that. That doesn't go on as robustly as we'd like it to right now. And the original intention was that this is something mobile that we could take from place to place, which we can do. But it really takes about 3 days to move it and set it up. So it's not something that happens easily. So we're looking at different models. Can we just bring the 3D printer to Mitchell Park for a special program? Can we just bring the laser printer for a different kind of thing? Are there other maker activities with the sewing machine or the soldering machine, different things that we can do, which is what a lot of libraries do as part of their regular programming. So you are making use of the maker space idea, but you're just using one piece of equipment as part of a formal program. So we're looking at different options for that. Right now, to undo the construction to fit it in at either that or Rinconada is probably not practical at the moment, but we certainly are looking for different ideas. And we're very grateful to Cubberley for giving us space that we can use. So, and their idea is to create a cultural cafe, a cultural commons there. And this actually does fit in well with that because there would be other artist studios involved. And this is sort of a nice presence for the library as part of that cultural cafe.
Thank you. They're so eager to move in Mitchell Park Library. But they are too late, understand. Okay. Any more questions?
I did want to mention that Rinconada Library is making its way. There's still some little construction bits that need to be worked out, and the vendors will not be back until after the first of the year. We will be closing temporary main, I believe it's January 6th. And sometime shortly after that, though I don't know the exact date, we will have a soft opening for Rinconada. And the grand opening will be on Saturday, February 14th when you will have the opportunity to love your library. So that will be our final celebration, and we're really looking forward to it because the Art Center will help us celebrate, so will all of our Rinconada neighbors, and it will be sort of a nice opportunity to show off all of the buildings, but particularly the library.
So is there anything that we can do to help with the opening?
You could certainly do the same thing that you did at Mitchell Park. That was outstanding. We will follow a similar format of 11 being, the celebration going 11 to 4, probably with the library closing at 5 again. It is definitely not the same scale. It's only the library at this point, and this is our third event. I don't want to sound jaded at all, but I think the Mitchell Park Library, or the community center piece, was huge for the community services department. So the library will likely be a little smaller, but no less fantastic. So yes, if you want to volunteer and be there that day, that will be very helpful. We'll let you know when there is a press tour, and we'll look forward to all of those similar activities.
Good, thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay, thank you, Monique, very much for the information. So does that also include library director's report?
Yes. So the library director's report was included. I did want to be sure you had any opportunity to ask me about the public library survey. This is a document that we complete annually for the California State Library. I think a few of you know that this is all available on a website that the California State Library has. This is fiscal year 14 data, and this is what you will find on their website is still fiscal year 13 data. This does not go up immediately. It takes a while for them to put it through their process, but it does it does feed into other nationwide databases like the Public Library Data Survey, things like that. So this is, and of course the State Library runs on a September to August fiscal year. So this is, they ask for our information later in the year. One of the items that did not make my report, which may be of interest to you and the community, is that the university room, which is in the downtown library, the boardroom size room, has been in use as a staff office while we've been under construction. Yesterday or today it was returned to public service as a meeting room space, so that is now available again. We have turned on the switch so that all of the adult collections are now floating collections. That means that when a library is checked out, for example, at Mitchell Park, and it's returned to another library, it goes on the shelf at that library. We've been experimenting with this over the last 2.5 years. We started first with DVDs, then we went to some children's picture books, and then we went to adult fiction, and now we're added the adult nonfiction. Most of the children's items are not floating because they need to live at Children's Library or at Mitchell Park, so they have an assigned location. But the benefit of the floating collection is that it reduces the amount of delivery and repetitive stress that those poor guys have to deal with, and makes the whole process much faster. And there's a whole way that we rebalance the collection. So if all the origami books end up at College Terrace, then College Terrace sends an email and says, I need to get rid of 10 origami books, do you have room? And other libraries say, yes, we'll take it, and then they'll send it in one chunk to wherever it needs to go. But it's definitely an easy way of using the whole system to its fullest and really balancing the collection so that it can all fit wherever it needs to go. And then I did want to mention today that some of you may not be aware that two members of the City Council and two members of the Palo Alto Unified School District Board meet monthly in what's called the City School Liaison Committee. And so today their topic was Mitchell Park. They met at Mitchell Park. They talked about the library and programs and services that we have for children and teens. And we did a presentation that was very well received. So the managers of Children's and of Mitchell Park talked about all of the different activities as well as the school relationships that we already have in place and that we participate in. So I don't know if any of you have any questions about.
You mentioned about the ballroom. Is it in the downtown? You say that now it's
The
in
university room is what it's called. It's at the downtown library.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh, another thing is about the square footage. Item number 212, it says total square footage is like 54,000 something. That's the old data, right?
That's correct. This data is reported as of June 30th, 2014.
Okay, so
It will change.
So now the most current data would be?
Off the top of my head, I have no idea.
Okay.
But the state library they want the reporting on a July to June, but they do their reporting at the end of September or October. And actually, this year we were asked in November, but we still have to provide the data from June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Monique, for our subcommittee on teens, could we get a copy of that presentation that you made?
I didn't make it, but yes, I can
Well,
get the presentation. It's slides with pictures.
Yeah,
so
that's
sure.
fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I had a question on this California statistics stuff.
Yes.
Just looked for stuff I didn't understand. So forgive me for asking, but
No, it's okay.
it says took advantage of CA Teleconnect subsidies during the report year. What is that about? And what is the next one about?
What's the line number? I'm sorry.
856 and 857.
Okay. So federal E-rate subsidies. E-rate is reimbursement for internet access and costs related to internet access. And it's based on the number of students in the school district, even though you're not part of a school district. It's based on the number of students who receive free or subsidized lunch.
I see.
And for us, even in cities like in Richmond, where there were some schools that were 100%, we did not apply for it because we had a city IT department, and all of the costs and things flowed through that department. So some large libraries have at the minimum a part-time or often a full-time person who all they do is E-rate and tracking it and
Okay.
trying to get it.
So we might be saving money, but yeah.
Oh, we
Okay.
are. No, we wouldn't be saving much.
No.
So, and the
I
California, yeah.
I meant by not
Oh, yes, for
applying
sure.
where we might be, yes.
And so the California Teleconnect subsidies are, it's, I think, a $50 subsidies for certain things, and it doesn't.
It doesn't,
It's not.
also, it's something that
Yeah.
we don't, and I just was interested in knowing what it was.
Yep.
And the other one was degree of adequacy of this facility.
Okay, yeah.
What's that about? And it looked like Mitchell Park was not rated as full, or it was rated lower there, and I assumed it had to do with the fact that it was like closed or something, or, you know.
Well,
we were
it
in
was in a temporary location.
temporary facility, yeah.
Correct. So they look at each branch by branch, and then they ask you, like, what year was it opened? What year was it originally built? Has it been remodeled? And the degree of adequacy. There are notes for all of these, but a 1 to 10, basically, does it have enough electrical outlets? Does the roof leak? Does, you know,
So in general, we'd get a 10.
it's all self-rated,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
okay.
our perception
Oh, it's
of-
our perception of it.
Yeah,
I
it's
see.
not-
I
they
see,
don't-
so it's not a, all right,
Yeah,
all right. And again, I was just,
yeah.
what
No,
are they
that's-
talking about? Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
I'm
Thank
happy
you.
you're asking.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh, by the way, the presentation you made to the council members and the school board, could you also email one to me? Because I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah, we'll just send a copy of that presentation to everyone.
Thank you. Okay, no more questions, so we just move on
Thank you,
to
Monique.
Yazan's report.
Yep. Can I back up? I am very sorry, because I did actually put at places the successful screenshots of the dashboard from Orange Boy as it is right now. So these are basic bits of information. I think it's no surprise that new customers by month and new customer activity both went off the chart about the same time that Mitchell Park opened. And you know, we can follow up on this maybe more in depth if you have questions. But I did only just do this, so we'll include this from now on in your packets,
Oh, great.
and you'll be able to follow the dashboard.
Good, very good.
Did anyone have any questions or comments?
On the household penetration,
Yes.
is there a way of showing whether that's, growing, or how fast it's growing, or not growing, or?
That actually, I think, is like a 6-month, or it's a longer time period. It's not changed every week.
Okay.
So that 38% has been constant now for a long time. I'll double check how long that period is.
Quarterly, it's updated quarterly.
Quarterly.
Quarterly, yes.
It's probably 55% or something now, right, after Mitchell?
I think if it's 39, I think we're doing,
Yeah, you
I
can,
have
you
a
can see the
question about
presentation slide on page 5. On the bottom slide, it says market penetration, and we have some explanation about market penetration. It says updated quarterly.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I had a quick question about the market penetration number. Given the social and educational characteristics of this community, an uneducated guess on my part that would be that I would assume that would be higher. But is that, in your experience, you worked in lots of different communities, is this a figure that seems reasonable to you, or given the levels of education and
Right.
whatnot?
So I haven't done this kind of study anywhere else, so I don't know exactly. However, the consultants said this is a very high number, actually, and that most, if they were retail vendors or something like that, they would be very happy to have 38% of the community, of the houses in the community, to have their product, in use at least once in the past 12 months. So it could be, the level of affluence could work against us, because many people can buy their own books. They can, you know, have their own internet access at home, things like that, so.
Okay, let's move on to the Alto reports. But before that, I want to say thank you, Gail, for your support and your service. We're sorry that we cannot have you in our council members, but you always have our support.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Once again, it's been a pleasure to be the liaison, and I'm always so impressed by the quality and the intensity of your commitment, the work and the devotion to the work. And I have equally high respect and admiration for Monique's work, the work of her staff. I mean, phenomenal. I mean, every time I hear about what's happening and all the different things that you've had to manage and all the creativity and the programming and the, you know, really serious examination and participating in this cultural institutions leadership program, it's just very impressive. And I think we should not take that for granted. We should be deeply grateful for her expertise and her commitment. It's wonderful. I have really enjoyed this, and people have been very gracious in thanking me, and I do appreciate that. The one way we went sort of sideways on you, I think, was the naming of the issue around the name of Rinconada. And I was part of that, and at the time, I thought it made sense to talk about Burge Clark as a name for that site, fully recognizing that he was not the architect for that building. But I think at the end of the day, the decision was a good one, and I appreciate your consistent, you know, steadfast support of Rinconada as the name for Maine. I did go to a reception between the Art Center and Rinconada to look at the architecture and the public art, and I went inside Rinconada and the Art Center. But Rinconada, I was stunned. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I used to think Rinconada was kind of a dark cave a little bit. We're trying to be fair here. You know, great collection, a lot of, you know, devoted staff, but it always felt too dark to me. And you walk in there now, and it's just a delight. And I think when you are, you know, fully able to do that, you'll see what I mean. It was great. The other quick thing is we have settled with Flint Co. related to our financial settlement with Flint Co. related to the long, arduous construction of Mitchell Park. And for the entire community, including the city council and the staff, it's a tremendous relief, because that required huge efforts on the part of everyone, staff, legal counsel, consultations, study sessions, I should say closed sessions, and it's a tremendous relief. So that's really good. And of all the things that have happened in the last 5 years, one of the things I'm most proud of is Mitchell Park, and almost Rinconada, right? So it's great. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. There's no order, just in terms of size. Mitchell Park is first, Rinconada is second. They're always number one, always number one. Okay.
Yeah,
So
is it still Maine?
Yeah, so let's move on to reports and questions. Any reports or questions? Okay.
I guess I'll comment. I attended the Full Palo board meeting last week, and they're doing quite well. Their sales are holding up. They're about the same as they were last year. They still have several $100,000 in the bank that they have not committed. So I have a feeling that sometime in the next few months we'll be getting some more money from Full Palo for something, although they haven't talked about what they want to do. They are quite pleased with the progress of the library and the Mitchell Park branch. And they didn't say very much about Rinconada, but it's a little bit early. But I have a feeling that when Rinconada opens, they're going to be putting some money into the facilities there also. So it's very interesting because, you know, they've been doing this for years. I don't know if you're aware, but I was on the Palo board years ago, and they just keep on chugging along. And the book sales have been going quite well. In fact, almost every month they say, we need more books. If you want to contribute, you know, we'd love to have more books. So, you know, anybody who has extra books or any other materials they'd like to contribute to FOPAL, by all means. Also on December 7th, I attended the secret open house that the foundation had at Rinconada, and it was very nice. The facility looks like it's pretty close to being complete. I'm sure that there's some stuff underground, you know, and the utilities that we don't see them still need to be tweaked, but the basic structure looks like it was pretty well in hand. And the group, there was a lot of people there, and it was very well attended, and the people, again, were very positive about the library and the progress we've been making. And I didn't hear any negative comments at all. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and we're doing pretty well. And I think the community is going to be quite happy in a couple of months when both new branches are open and they have a chance to actually experience them. I do occasionally hear comments about Flint Coat. And my only response to that is, well, if it was me, I'd have fired the bastards 2 years ago. But I don't do public works.
Okay, thank you, Bob, for your comment very much. Any more comments or questions or announcements? Okay, then do I have a motion? Oh, okay, let's talk about agenda for next meeting. Our next meeting will be February 26, 2015. So any ideas for the agenda? Do you think that the subcommittee, because we just arrange the topics, do you think that you could
I think if Don can, you know, and I can get together in the new year after the holidays, we should have some update, and hopefully it's, you know, more comprehensive than not to get us started. But yeah, I think we can have a report.
Okay, good. So that's one for the agenda for that. I think the main negative comment for Mitchell Park Library is the hours. People complain that maybe the hour is not long enough. They want more because the current hour is not enough. So should we have Monique tell us, is there any way that we could increase the hour? Because you mentioned that in January you will prepare the budget. So do you think that we should make some arrangements? That is there a possibility we can extend the hours or something like that?
I need more staff. I mean, honestly, that's the way at this point that we'll be able to do it. And again, I mean, I can prepare a comparison for you so you can see what hours other libraries in the area are open. You know, I fully recognize that, and certainly in terms of the looking at the number of FTE and the number of, you know, a number of indicators that might help you better understand why we're open, when we're open. I can certainly prepare a presentation on that for you. I will, of course, be looking at ways to enhance the staff so that we're able to meet that. But, you know, the city has been pretty consistent in their message, council and the city manager, about limiting full-time staff because of the benefits, costs, things like that. So, you know, we already have a fair number of hourly staff. We can certainly look at that. But it might help you to better understand how many staff are needed per hour to make a building work. They're each different. Mitchell Park has 3 service points, one upstairs, 2 downstairs, in addition to the staff who do programs or who are coaching people on how to download an ebook or, all of those things that take up a longer amount of time than a usual reference transaction or interaction. So, if that's helpful to you, we can certainly talk about that.
So another thing is that because you mentioned that if we want to extend the hours, then probably we have to move things around. We have to do different allocate the resources on different things. Like we have to reduce the program hours, or if we want to extend the hours, what kind of things we would sacrifice for if we want to extend the hours? So is it possible that we can build up partnership with local communities and so they can fit in the programs so we can have the programs without spending money? Is there a possibility that we can do that, or I don't know?
Yeah, I think we can look at all kinds of alternatives. Even when you aren't spending money on a program, you're still spending money managing it, making sure everybody's, in the room, things like that. But we'll certainly look at all different alternatives. Let's begin with at least the comparison. Yes. We already do partner with a lot of people to present our programs, whether we pay them or not. And I can explain that a little bit more, if that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. So, I wonder if I can ask I don't know if this is a question I'd like an answer to at the next meeting, or if this is a question, but I'm not sure how to quantify this type of thing in order to figure out, whether to pursue it or not. So we know that some people have complained about the hours. And we certainly know that the libraries aren't open. They aren't open 24/7, and there's some limitation to the hours. So those 2 things are true. But do we know how many people, what percentage of users, or any of those sorts of things? Do you have that? Do you have?
We actually,
Do you count that?
When Orange Boy did their survey, they did ask about enhanced hours, and they did talk to different groups of people, to different stakeholders. It's always brought up. So it is one of those things you can look at, but one of the, I went to them and said, okay, how do we count this? Well, how do we think about it? So their recommendation, which has been pretty consistent on anything we've asked them, is you've identified 4 clusters as the 4 that you are focusing your attention on. And what makes the most sense in terms of available hours for those 4 clusters, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And that's how you make the determination, at least at the beginning. We can't do everything. We can't be everything for all people. I think there was one gentleman who wants us to open when Wall Street opens so that he can manage his portfolio. So this is not the first time
because
or the first city where I've ever heard this. They want to use Morningstar. They want to use things like that. There's people who have said, I would come every night until 10. Will they really come every night until 10? It's not likely. Mm-hmm. So there's, a wide range of things. There are, what would happen if we weren't open 7 days a week at one of the larger, at Children's is not mm-hmm. a large library. Are there ways to shift those hours around? We will be making changes so that they close at 6 p.m., just like all the other branches on Thursday and Friday. Right now they close at 5. So we're actually adding a couple of service hours there just because for consistency's sake, it makes it easier. And that's been the most frequent thing that many people mm-hmm. have said. I don't want to think about, is it Thursday? Are they open at noon? Do they open at 10, what,
Yeah.
can't it just be consistent? So I think that there's, a number of considerations to think about. But, we'll be happy to present information on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's,
And we would love to be open all the time. We've, we've talked about, well, what if downtown was open till 2 in the morning? What would, we've been approached by people who would like to use the library, people who are programmers, people who work downtown, who would like to come when they get off work because they can't come any other time. But again, it's how many people, what percentage,
Yeah.
The issue of full-time working people and families
Sure.
is an issue related to hours, so people who have children getting there by 5, for example, is, almost impossible, so.
Right.
But you're obviously very conscious of that, so.
well, it also was striking me that when you do look at the budget this year, which will be before we meet again, that would be the only time you could really bring up anything that could affect change this year. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can make suggestions anytime, and I would certainly suggest that you talk to people you know and ask them about when would they like to use the library? Do they use it? Do they actually go? I mean, to me, that's the value in your role, is you talk to different groups of people than we might talk with. And, you ask your neighbors, ask your family, things like that. That's helpful to us. Those anecdotal bits of information are just every bit as valuable as the hard data, which gives you all the numbers.
Yeah, sometimes I think the library hour is just like a marathon. Or I should say a relay. In the morning, it's like housewives or some seniors. They will be there, read books, magazines, and newspapers, or sometimes they use our Wi-Fi, log on to computer. In the afternoon, it's kids. Lots of kids will gather around and probably in the study room or read books. And in the evening, probably some people, they get off work and they like to have some place to read, quiet place to read. So it's kind of relay, first and second. So always people would like to get into library, like to use our resources. So please give us some information on that. Is there any possibility that we can extend our hours like that? Okay, thank you.
So, agenda items and calendar. A few things. One, I think it'll be the first meeting after the Rinconada opening. So
Yes.
it'd probably be good to take just a few minutes to review that like we did tonight. And,
Yes.
so I'd suggest that as an agenda. And the other is, I think we'll have our new council seated by then. And in terms of our council buddies, we might want to review that and update that. So I think that's another
Council.
possible topic. And then the third was just a question on the calendar. Do we have the calendar set? I don't know if it's on the website or it was emailed. I don't know if it can be emailed again for 2015. Or is it in the packet? I'm
It's in the
sorry.
packet.
It's at the bottom, isn't it? I
It's
think
in
I
the
saw
packet.
it. That's right.
Yeah, it's in the packet, yeah.
Where in the packet? It's a big packet.
Somewhere.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, it's every other month.
It's in the pack, if you can't find it.
Where was it?
It's like that.
Yeah.
If I can't find it, I'll take yours. And then you won't know. Okay, thank you, Minnie. Thanks, everyone.
Happily
That was
keeps
it.
her on track.
Good. Thank you, Doug, for the suggestions. That's very good. So we will review Rinconada, and we will review our council bodies. Okay. Any more suggestions?
One other thing we might want to talk about next time is get an update on Mitchell Park. I mean, we had a big surge when it opened, and are we still getting a lot of checkouts and a lot of attendance? Just to see if, that was a spike or if this was the beginning of a real change.
And I just add to that, there's all these new users that we've gotten, and I don't know if we'll have any preliminary data on what they're doing. or if that'll show up in our dashboard. But, to understand a little bit about, what they're doing in that first few months would be great.
So you see, you do have a slide or a thing that says new customer activity. So that shows you what the customer has done in the first week of having their library card. So what did they do first off? What was their point? And so you see that there are 4 different colors. There's blue is really the only one that shows up with any, all those other colors are lumped together way at the bottom. So that's you can monitor that. We don't require people to swipe their card when they come to a program, so it may be that they came for a program, that's why they came, but that's one of the things we don't measure. We don't measure, did they use the Wi-Fi, because the city Wi-Fi doesn't require you to log in with your library card. So, there's a number of things that we can't really count, as part of this, but you'll have a sense through the dashboard, I think.
Okay, so for the agenda, probably we'll review Recanada, Council Body, and Mitchell Park as well. So we can also have some feedback, because I believe we will finish the presentation on February 2nd. So probably we could have some discussion after the presentation. Okay.
One more question, if I might. Monique, earlier you said that we're focusing on 4 major clusters?
We're focusing on 4 different clusters.
Right. And pardon me, but I forget which ones they are, and these reports have all of them in.
Right.
Is there a way to single out those 4? Or something?
Single them out, meaning just only highlight them, or maybe make them a different color?
Whatever, I don't know how the reporting system works, or what might be convenient, or what you think might be useful.
I'll ask the vendor to change its bedtime stories, bright futures, digitarians, and transitionals.
That's our target.
Change them to,
Those are the 4 clusters
Thank you.
that future activities are focused towards.
so are you just saying something, Don, like this pie chart, it would be nice if there was a little arrow on each of the colors that indicate those 4? Is that all you're saying?
We can do it in a
Or-
different color or bold or something. We'll figure it out.
I don't know.
I have to ask the vendor. We don't have control over that.
My first question was, or my first thought was, gee, and since we're interested in clusters, how does that relate to new customers? Which cluster are they in? But you can't tell that until they've actually been customers.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, they don't.
They're
But it was a
just,
good idea.
they're just new. And you even see in the customer clusters that there is new card holders are one of the groups. Until they have activity and until they move into a cluster. And that actually doesn't happen immediately. It happens after, I think it's 12 weeks of use. Your first interaction does not necessarily dictate your user behavior, so,
Doesn't make you a person.
no. Any other questions about that?
Thank you.
Okay. I did want to come back to the February 2nd study session. June, you did reply that you're going to be out of town that day. Not everyone has replied, but is everyone else available on February 2nd?
It's okay, works for me.
For the
Yes.
joint meeting with the
Joint meeting.
council? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I shouldn't have any problem making it.
Okay. And Doug is checking.
So,
Okay. Gail can say another statement while Doug looks at his calendar. Here. Come close to me.
Pretty bad.
I also wanted to make sure to acknowledge Evelyn, because you've done such fabulous work to support Monique and the LAC. And thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure working with you as well.
There we go. Yes, Evelyn's the best. All right.
7 p.m. is
It normally starts at 6.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could probably move some things around.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you, we don't know when we be agendized in that meeting, or do we go up, is it just a special meeting, or is it part of the overall Monday council meeting?
It comes before the council meeting. It's a
Okay.
study session, and if we may be the only study session, so then we would start right at 6.
Okay.
But we will confirm as we know more.
Okay. Any more suggestions?
One other comment, I wanted to add what Sheena said about our appreciation for Gail Price's service and liaison. I'm delighted to have had her as a liaison to the Library Commission, and I appreciate her attendance at the meetings and her contributions. I think that we've been well served by her.
Yes. Okay,
So, I wonder if you and I should try to meet also between now and the next council meeting about our new subcommittee
sure.
to look at comparisons. So
No problem.
We'll try to do that. And,
Okay, as long as you're in town.
Yeah, I'll try to be.
Okay, good, good, good.
Well, I have a question. Are we supposed to pick council buddies?
Not now, I think.
Not now?
Not
We
yet.
just suggested it for the next agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think no more suggestions. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, do I have a second?
Your microphone's on.
I'll second.
Okay, we adjourn. Thank you very much.
We have to vote. We vote to adjourn.
We have to vote? Okay, all in favor say.
Sham, a great miracle happened there. We light the candles for 8 nights, it's happening everywhere. My dreidels always